Good morning, everybody. I'm Zach Blanchard, and this is Political Brew. Joining me this morning are our analysts, Democrat BJ McCollister and Republican Garrett Mason. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, guys.
A lot of national news to get to, but we want to start here in Maine. A government watchdog group investigating the state's handling of child and family services says there were errors on top of errors leading to an infant's death in 2021. The Office of Program Evaluation and Government Accountability, or OPEGA, found the baby's father was the subject of a Child Protective Services complaint before his son's death, but DHHS never investigated it. Former State Senator Bill Diamond says this death should have been prevented.
That's what we've been working on, trying to find a solution that will prevent these from happening. What we're really going to find out, I think, in the end, is that this is basically a management problem. It's a culture problem, and it's a system that needs to be fixed.
Now, Garrett, I want to start with you. Jaden Harding's death was one of 4 child deaths OPEGA was investigating here. What will it take to turn these reports into actual action?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I agree with a lot of what Bill Diamond said. He's been on the case for this for a really long time, and I think his voice is very important in this debate. But, I think when it comes to OPEGA, they have a really long history of putting out solid reporting. It's nonpartisan. It's one of the only committees in the legislature that has an equal amount of Republicans and Democrats, no matter who is in control. And they're going to come out with recommendations. You read through all of these reports. I think there's 4 on the child deaths that have been asked to be investigated over the past year. And there's recommendations in there. And I actually have spoken with a few of the members of the OPEGA committee, and there is themes that run throughout all of these things. Senator Diamond is right. It's a culture problem, it's a funding problem, and there's a massive communication problem over there.
BJ?
Yeah, I agree. Senator Diamond is right. He's been a leader on this. You're absolutely right, Garrett. But I think something that's important to focus on is the fact that the frontline workers who are trying to navigate this crisis right now are reporting themselves that they are overworked, they don't get breaks, they have forced overtime, and report after report says that they need more workers on the front lines. And so it's going to be on the legislature to find ways to expand that workforce and recruit the best people to be in these positions. And just one other thing that I would add is these caseworkers have been surveyed by the State Employees Association, and over 50% say that they either have a workload that puts kids in danger or that they have a workload that is just not humanly possible to navigate. So we have a huge crisis here.
Yeah, BJ is absolutely right. This is a place that Republicans and Democrats agree, is that there needs to be a solution to this problem. There's many out there. One is we have to find a way to reduce the caseload. It's too much. One of these people during the OPEGA hearing described it as a war zone.
Yep.
And so it's a huge problem. It's going to get investigated, and I think that OPEGA is on the right track.
Meantime, State Senator Brey says he won't seek re-election. Brey, a Republican from Auburn, lost a run for U.S. Senate in 2018 and another for Maine's 2nd District congressional seat in 2020. He's had his fair share of controversy. Brey says he plans to move to New Hampshire to lead a libertarian movement. BJ, Democrats in the state are already celebrating this news, hoping they will flip that seat. Is that likely here?
Yeah, look, Auburn is one of the top toss-up seats in the Maine legislature. There's no question. And Senator Brey has been a force. Every time he's run for that seat, it's been targeted, but he is able to deliver a victory for Republicans every time. So this is squarely on the map, and Democrats should celebrate because they've got one more seat in play in the upcoming election.
I think another person that should celebrate is Brey. I think anytime you choose family over politics, and that's what he said in his statement, that's a win. And he has done service to the state, and I think any politician who has put in their time should be celebrated. But politically, BJ's right. It's a toss-up seat. It is every year. When Brey's on the ballot, we tend to win. So hopefully we'll find somebody that can do that again and keep it in the red column.
We will see. Meantime, in Washington, another controversial figure, Congressman George Santos, has been expelled from Congress. This despite the top 4 GOP leaders all opposing the move, including House Speaker Mike Johnson. The 35-year-old first-term Republican congressman faces criminal campaign finance charges and has admitted to fabricating parts of his life. He refused to resign, but did have some final words on the House floor the night before the vote. Take a listen.
I have accepted that I cannot control that faith, Mr. Speaker. I have done the best I can to serve in this body and to deliver the best I can in my campaign promises to vote as a conservative voice in this body. I stand by that.
All right, Garrett, Santos continues to deny any wrongdoing. What does this really mean for the Republican Party on a macro level?
Yeah, I don't know if it reflects necessarily on the Republican Party as a whole. I think anybody who looks at the findings that the House Ethics Commission found on George Santos would say that they're scrupulous. I think well, I guess former Representative Santos at this point, you know, he committed some wrongdoing. I mean, spending money on things like OnlyFans and things, really wild stuff. I mean, that was going to come out in the wash anyways. I mean, but to expel somebody from the House floor, that's an extraordinary step. I mean, there have been other members of Congress who have done far worse and actually been convicted of them, not just accused of them. So I think, you know, anytime that you're going after somebody who has been elected to represent their district, you should probably make sure that they're actually convicted of something. Probably premature, but was probably going to happen anyways.
Yeah, but BJ here, you had House Republican leadership, including the House Speaker, opposing this.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, Mr. Santos was a scar on the institution. And what we see here is that, again, this MAGA-controlled Congress can't always get their act together, and it's because of this failed leadership wanting to give forgiveness for Mr. Santos. But at the end of the day, enough Republicans came along to say it was time for him to go.
All right, now to this. They aren't running against each other for anything, but Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and California Governor Gavin Newsom faced off in a presidential-style debate on Fox News this week. DeSantis is, of course, running in the presidential primary. Newsom isn't on the Democratic primary ballot, but he's widely viewed as a potential 2028 candidate.
I thought this was state versus state. No, but it's about the United States of America. I thought this guy was running for president of the United States. If
you
you're
are
running
too.
For
You just won't admit it.
You're running for a third term.
You just won't admit it. You will not admit it.
Why don't you
All right,
gentlemen,
admit that you're running?
Hold on.
All right, BJ, I think a lot of people are just asking why.
Yeah, look, obviously a huge publicity stunt for both of them. I think probably a bigger win for Santos to get that much primetime coverage. Oh, sorry, I said Santos.
That's okay. DeSantis?
Probably a bigger win for DeSantis at the end of the day, because he's able to get a lot of primetime coverage out of this debate. And when you look at this, I don't think that there's any question that Gavin Newsom would like to be the nominee, but he ended the debate saying that neither of them ultimately would be the nominee. So I think he's acknowledging that and understanding that. I don't know why he did it, though. Garrett?
Listen, I'll be honest with you. I haven't endorsed anybody for president this go around on our side, but that was a huge win for Ron DeSantis. It was a publicity, absolute win for him. And to be honest, I'm biased, but I think he got the best of Gavin Newsom while he was up there. And Governor DeSantis is right. He just needs to admit that he is the candidate in waiting. In case anything happens to Joe Biden, Gavin Newsom's here to take up arms for the Democrat Party. And he, in the words of the governor, he needs to just admit it.
But an unofficial debate there. So before we go to break, Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman to serve on the Supreme Court and the justice who held the court's center for more than a generation, died Friday. O'Connor cast a key swing vote to uphold Roe versus Wade when the court's earlier decision on abortion rights was challenged. She also voted to stop the 2000 Florida recount, the 5-4 decision that helped determine the winner of the presidential election between George Bush and Al Gore. She was 93 years old. The Morning Report is back right after this. Good morning, everybody. I'm Zach Blanchard, and this is Political Brew. Joining me this morning are our analysts, Democrat BJ McCollister and Republican Garrett Mason. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, guys.
First this week, the big news, Senator Angus King announcing new gun legislation 5 weeks after the horrific Lewiston shootings. The Go Safe Act stops short of a ban on assault weapons, but it would limit magazine capacity and future manufacturing of weapons to 10 rounds and establish a voluntary buyback program for high-capacity weapons. I spoke one-on-one with Senator King from Washington this week for a more in-depth conversation about what this bill means. Senator King, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely, Zach. Good to see you, man.
I want to start out with this legislation you're introducing. This, of course, comes in the wake of the Lewiston tragedy. What message do you hope this sends to the families impacted?
Well, I think the message is that we can't do anything about the tragedy that occurred, but we can try to keep tragedies like this from occurring again in Maine or anywhere else. And what we're trying to do, Zach, is come up with legislation that will really significantly dent the lethality of these weapons.
What do you say to people who say this doesn't go far enough?
Well, I think it's the strongest bill in this realm that's ever been introduced, in my view, and I think it's a very strong piece of legislation. I think what it gets at is the lethality of the weapon. The problem with the prior so-called assault weapon bans was that what they were focused on was what the gun looked like rather than how it functioned. And we've been working, Martin Heinrich and I, he's a senator from New Mexico, have been working on this for several years to get to the mechanics of how it works. And I think this will be more effective.
All right, another element here is a voluntary buyback program for guns already owned. Do you expect Mainers to hand over their guns, Senator?
No, and I want to emphasize this isn't anything about confiscation or taking away guns. People will be able to keep the guns that they have. They can pass them on to family members. But when they go to sell it, it would be sold to the authorities. They get fair price for it. But gradually, this would take these weapons off the street. There are now between 20 and 30 million of these weapons out on the street. And our bill focuses on the manufacture and limitations on the manufacture of new ones. But we're also paying attention to the fact that there are just so many out there.
And Senator, Congressman Jared Golden has reversed course and said he will support an assault weapons ban. Why are you opposed to that?
I'm not. I mean, that's what the bill that you're talking about today is. I mean, I don't like the word ban because the prior bill, the so-called the Feinstein bill, wasn't a ban. It was really a ban on large capacity magazines. So it's the same. We're talking about the same thing. And in fact, Jared has our bill and I think is looking at it.
And I know just last year you backed the Safer Community Act, which was historic legislation at the time to invest more in things like mental health, red flag laws, and background checks. But ultimately that didn't prevent the tragedy in Lewiston. Do you feel more needs to be done on the state level?
Well, I'm going to leave that to the governor and the legislature. I think the state has what's called a yellow flag law, which has been used pretty frequently. I don't remember the exact number, but more than 50 times. And I do think that the Lewiston case really touches on all three aspects of this problem. One is mental health, and we really have a national mental health epidemic in this country. I call it an epidemic of despair, of suicide, drug abuse, and depression, and that's part of it. And clearly, that was part of it in this fellow's case in Lewiston. Secondly is connecting the dots, and that's when you get to red flag laws, yellow flag laws, and being sure that if someone is in trouble and indicates problems, that it gets to the proper authorities and that action is taken. And I think that's something I know the governor is looking into. They've got a commission working on that. What happened? What was the breakdown? And I think that's an area that we have to continue to look at. And then finally is the weapon itself, and the key is the lethality of the weapon. How do you make it less dangerous? Not what it looks like, but how do you make it actually less dangerous? My goal, straight up, is saving lives. And we believe that the legislation that we're proposing today will do exactly that.
Do you have the support of the other members of Maine's congressional delegation on this?
They're all looking at it. They're all reviewing it now. Senator Collins is looking at it, Jared, Shelley Pingree. So I'm very hopeful that they're going to decide that this is a sensible approach. There's certainly significant opposition to any gun legislation, particularly in the Republican Party. But I believe the time will come when people are going to say, wait a minute, this just doesn't make sense to have these weapons out there on the street contributing to tragedies like we saw in Lewiston.
All right, Senator Angus King, thank you so much for your time. All right, Garrett, just initial reactions here.
Yeah, I mean, my initial reaction is I think this bill is dead on arrival in the House, definitely, but maybe also in the Senate. I'm not sure how far it will get. But yeah, I'll commend Senator King for one thing. Previous versions of assault weapon bans just go after what a gun looks like. And, like we're going to, it's a big, scary black gun, usually an AR-15 that, a senator will haul out. And a lot of those items are actually safety features for the users and people who might be on the other end of that. Being honest about going after a gun for its use, not what it looks like, I think is an actual, real, and honest step. So I'll give him that. But I mean, conservatives and people who are against gun control are never going to be for this bill. He says it's a voluntary buyback. It's not. When you sell the weapon, you have to give it up to the federal government. I will tell you, what would have worked, and it was if the yellow flag law was completely and 100% implemented in the case here in Lewiston. If we're going to actually talk about real solutions, we should talk about solutions that of just what's on the books already and following that.
BJ?
Yeah, look, I think it's going to take comprehensive gun reform to prevent tragedies like Lewiston. What Senator King has here is an elegant solution. As Garrett mentioned, it's talking about the way the gun operates, and I think that makes it a lot more effective. It is likely dead on arrival, although I think, the role that Senator Collins plays in this discussion will be pivotal, and I'm sure we'll hear more from her.
Yeah, speaking of that, this all comes after that press conference with Congressman Jared Golden and Senator Collins in the days after the shooting. Golden apologizing and vowing to support a ban on assault weapons, and the national media going after Collins for not taking a stronger stance. A spokesperson for Collins shared this statement with us, saying in part, Senator Collins recognizes the time and effort that went into developing this proposal from Senators Heinrich and King, and she will carefully consider it. BJ, obviously not necessarily a ringing endorsement here, though.
No, but what we do know about Senator Collins is this is what the response initially usually looks like. She takes time to review the legislation. But what we also know is that people are rightfully passionate about this issue, and I'm sure her office will be hearing a lot about it because her role will be pivotal in the success of this legislation.
And Garrett, Senator Collins is obviously walking a fine line, but why isn't this Lewiston shooting really hitting home here in Maine the moment to spark some change, enough to change course?
Well, I think it's because of decades of responsible gun ownership. I think, when Senator Collins Senator King initially hit the tarmac when the tragedy all happened, that was the first thing that came out. He applauded Maine citizens for responsible gun ownership. Senator Collins has done the same thing. So I'm not sure that there's any course reversing going on except for Senator King and Representative Golden. Senator Collins is where she always has been, and she's going to carefully consider the bill. And if I know her, and I do, I know Senator Collins will read every word of that bill and will give a thoughtful response. That's what Mainers have come to know about her. It's what Mainers love about her, and it's why they continue to send her back.
I would just add, though, the federal government moves very slow. As Garrett mentioned, This is a very difficult bill to pass. State lawmakers come back to Augusta in January, and I think we will see the proposal of sweeping reforms that will likely gain traction because of the tragedy in Lewiston.
All right, BJ McCollister, Garrett Mason, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go, a quick reminder to catch Meet the Press with Kristen Welker, including an interview with GOP presidential candidate Ron DeSantis, coming up at 10 o'clock right here on News Center Maine. The Morning Report is back right after this.